Morning, mathematicians. Let's quickly review some of the work that we did last week with our calendar markers. We looked at these different markers and we realized that if we took Charlie's way, that these were 1/3 of the whole. So here, 1/3 of the squares are red. Here it's 1/3 of a pizza, 1/3 of an hour, 1/3 of a dozen eggs, 1/3 of 1 foot. But really, we can see these in different ways too. Yes, it is 1/3 of the whole, but we can look at those equivalent fractions. We can see again that it's taking up 1/3 of the entire circle, but that 1/3 could be broken up in different ways. So just take a moment to look at how 1/3 can be represented, but also broken up differently. Maybe think to yourself, what would you write for this fraction? Another way, instead of 1/3, it could also be, what about this one? So your work on Seesaw today is going to be thinking about those types of fractions. So on Seesaw, you'll have this More About Fractions worksheet. And on the top, it's those same calendar markers that we just saw. So if we think of Penny's way how to do this from that week before, here she would say, okay, I am counting 1, 2, 3, 4 of the squares are red, and it's 4 red out of how many in all? So it's 4 red out of 12 squares in all. But Charlie really looked at it differently. He saw 1 red strip out of 3 red strips in all, or those strips could be columns. So he saw 3 columns, and of those 3 columns, one of them was red. So he saw it as 1/3. Now, same with the pizza. I see 2 pizza slices, and the pizza should have a total of 6. So that could be 2 6. But if you look at it a little bit differently, you see 3 groups of 2. And when I split it up that way, it is 1/3. Now, if I look at the time, how many minutes have passed if the minute hand started at 12 and went to the 4? That would be a total of how many minutes? 20 minutes. And in 1 hour, there's a total of how many minutes? 60 minutes. So wow, that's a crazy looking fraction, right? 20 minutes out of 60 minutes. But again, I could see that there are 3 groups of 20 minutes. 20 plus 20 plus 20 is 60. And when I see it this way, I see that there's thirds, and 1 is shaded, so it would be 1/3. Here I have a dozen eggs. And if you have an egg carton, it's kind of fun to play around with fractions. There's lots of different ways that you can make fractions with a dozen eggs. So just a quick activity you could try. Okay, so anyways, I see 1, 2, 3, 4 eggs. And I know in a dozen eggs, there's supposed to be 12. So 4 out of 12. Hey, that's like the first calendar marker that we did on the 6th, 4 out of 12. Interesting, they're alike. Okay, but anyways, so if I take that, there is another group of 4 here and another group of 4. Again, I have 3 equal groups of 4. 3 groups again. Interesting, but it made a third. It's 1 group of 4, but it's 1/3. Okay. And last one, I have the inches. Again, I see 4 inches. How many inches are supposed to be on a ruler or a foot? It's 12 inches. So it's 4 out of 12. But again, here's 4. 4 plus 4 is 8. 8 plus 4 is 12. Again, I've made 3 groups of 4. 1 is shaded. So now in my new equivalent fraction, I have 1 out of 3. Kind of interesting ways to see it. You might even see some number patterns. And you notice how I actually used equal groups within fractions. It's crazy how math works. But today on Seesaw, I want you to complete that chart, but I also want you to look further into the worksheet, thinking about, how do the markers all show 1/3 of something? And if the question says, do you agree, why or why not? Yes, I agree because, or no, I don't agree because. And in math, we can use words, pictures, labels. You might even refer to the chart to help you with that. Then even more comparing, which is more, 2/6 or 1/4. How do you know? You don't just say 2/6 is more than a half or a half is more than 2/6. Done. How do you know? I know because of this. Show your work. Maybe give an example. Go back to the chart again. Look at how you can show fractions. You could show it on a ruler, on a pizza, on a dozen eggs, on an array. So make sure you're proving it. And then here's that other egg example. So let's color 1/3 of the eggs in this carton. And again, it seems silly, but if you have an empty carton, play around with fractions, make those equal parts within it to see all the different ways that you can make fractions. That's an extra activity just for fun while we're locked up at home, safer at home. But go ahead and complete this activity, turn it in. Bye.